Can I hear myself? Oh, Hey everyone, so we are here at Tabletop with Tabletop Misfits tonight. We are going over our Tavern talks. We've got a special guest tonight from Dungeon Studios. Josh, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
There we go. So Josh is here. We've had Chris on here, who also works with Dungeon Studios, and he was supposed to be here tonight, but he ran into some problems. So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to continue our dive through the Dungeon Master's Guide, but in a little bit of a different way this time. So Josh knew what he was walking into, but I don't know if he knew exactly what he was walking into. So we'll find out shortly. This is Josh's first time on here, so Josh, before we go into anything, we just like to have our guests tell us a little bit of how you got into gaming in general, specifically tabletop gaming, and like what's Dungeon Studios all about. So go for it, man.
Yeah, so myself, I have been doing D&D for, I don't know, probably 15 years plus. DMing probably about 5 years, and building this world that we are working on. We're probably about almost 3 years deep into that. Um, what our vision for Eneron is a mix of lots of different aspects of D&D, and different kinds of uh, mechanics and stuff that we've adapted. Myself and a lot of my group, we have played a lot of tabletop of all different kinds, and we have came up with a way where we are mixing a lot of different mechanics and different ideas that we pulled from all these different tabletop games and stuff, and we've created our world with it.
Nice. So yeah, so we brought Josh in here for specifically for this one as a good way to. Um, okay, hold on. Let's get Josh up a little bit. Let's see here. Oh boy, that was loud. All right, let's see. Hopefully, we'll mess with the volume a little bit here and there as we go. So please let us know if you can't hear one of us or not. But what we're going to go over tonight is the preparation for a campaign. Specifically, what do you prepare before you even started a session 0? What do you prepare before you start session 1? And what do you prepare and how do you prepare each session forward? So I know there's multiple ways to do it, all sorts of YouTube videos, game masters from around the world that have explained how they prepare. But we wanted to get a personal opinion by somebody who's currently just building their game continuously through this um, community process is Enteron Online. So, Josh, when you get your game started and you have either the lore already built or even better if it's not built, what lore do you need before you want to start that first session?
Typically, where I like to start before we even talk about even a session 0 is kind of what the players are expecting from the adventure. The whole idea is, yeah, I'm having a good time, but there's, a whole table full of people that want to have a good time, and the adventure gets built behind, how they're wanting to develop it. So what I do is, I see where their heads are at on an adventure, and then I just either pull from my knowledge of things about said topic, or I will begin to like research and look up what maybe other people are doing, and build off of that. That's before we even talk about character creation or anything beyond, um, building the idea of the adventure first.
Okay, so let's step a little bit forward. So what the main focus tonight is to show people how to better prepare for an adventure. So we've already gotten through that first step where you've sat down with your players, you've found out how they want to play the game. What are you planning to be prepared to have ready for you before you sit down for that first actual session? Do you prepare NPCs? What do you prepare, and specifically, how do you prepare that so that when people watching this understand and can kind of go, okay, if I set my game up this way, I feel a little more prepared. I feel a little more at ease. My nervousness can be reduced a little bit because I know personally as a game master, there's always that like butterfly fluttering feel where you worry or you question, have I prepared enough or have I prepared too much? What do you use to kind of parallel that?
Well, first off, I kind of believe that you can almost never prepare enough, depending on the players at your table. Um, in our games, I like to make sure that the world is set where they're going to play, and then we focus on, I like to lay out
Oh, and we lost Josh. We'll be back in a second.
maybe certain items and things that are common in that area. We'll have prepared. Um, and then also, I usually like to have like the first scene going in. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It just looked like we froze up
Yeah, it was.
there.
I think you chopped
So
out for a second and then you came back. So
yeah, like okay. So yeah, I like to make sure that the first scene is what I call them. I like to play things out in a cinematic form, and I will have the first scene painted out, and so that way everything has its place. It's a great way to start an adventure with everything that's very detailed. Know what smells are in the town that the players are going to interact. Know the sounds. Know the environment, the time of day, time of year. All those different things that are important to establishing like a great adventure.
okay. Yeah. So I mean, definitely using your senses is a great way to describe and to give flavor and specifically to bring your adventure to life. I completely agree on that. Um, I will say a lot of those things, though, for new game masters, um, time of day, time of year, those can be really fun, but you don't need them, in my opinion. But that's also, like I said, two different game mastering styles here. Um, but I believe that they definitely do bring a different flavor to the game
Sure.
where when you have those, you then have things that you can sprinkle in here and there depending on the seasons or depending on the time of day it is. So things will happen in the daytime that don't happen at night, stuff like that. Um, what about your
Absolutely.
what about your actual preparation before the session? Is there any? Do you set yours up in scenes? So you tell them a scene, and then you let them roll with that scene, correct?
So it's I like heavy RP. I
Mm-hmm.
like the players to lead the adventure. I look at I'm there, to tell the story, to narrate and to guide. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I want them to lead the adventure. Yeah, there are times where I need to come in and kind of wrangle them back in where they need to be. You know what I mean? But all of those things, I can do, silently behind the scenes, so to
Mm-hmm.
say. Um, but I do prefer that they lead the adventure, and by doing that, it opens up more avenues, and I like to prepare lots of avenues for them to explore. Lots of different routes that they can take the game, and more of that open world kind of sandbox feel a little
Hmm.
bit, if you want to say it that way. And that's just kind of the way that I've adapted to doing it.
Okay, can
I do a lot of.
you
Go ahead.
give us some sort of example of what you would say different avenues would be for new game masters, like what they might want to be interested in paying attention to when they're building their campaign?
So different avenues. So what I mean by that is, when the players are RPing, they are going to, you can't, as a game master, you can't know what they're going to do. All you can kind of do is prepare and have things, ready in certain aspects. Now you can, via NPCs and certain things that are going on in the environment or whatever situation they're in, can help guide uh, certain aspects of different avenues that they could take. But what I mean by different avenues basically is, if the players, while they're RPing, decide that they are going to go after something that's completely different from where the story is actually wanting to take them, having something prepared, to for a story alteration is one of the most crucial things for me, anyways, because I've played at many tables and played with many people where the game doesn't follow the line all the way. Especially when you're doing homebrew things and like
Hmm.
that. If you're running, like a module or something, it kind of gives you the guidelines to follow straight through, you know what I mean? And, it's not as bad. But in the homebrew world, those are very important to me.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. As you, the more you dive into a custom game, the more you dive into a home built structured game, you you blur those lines a little bit more. Um, we do have to, and this is something that definitely needs to go out to the party, though, is remember that your game master is not against you. He's not there to hate you. He's there to tell a story with you. So don't, if you're just being that player, and I've seen these players, and it's the reason I'm mentioning this, if you're being the player who just doesn't want to go with the story because you don't want to go with the story, realize and please be cognizant of your game master because he does put time and effort into making sure that the story makes sense. Um, what I tell my players personally when they enter most cities, unless they are in a backwoods alley place in the middle of nowhere with one guard who sits and walks around the street and that's it. Most of your guards are going to be a little more difficult than just, the average everyday thug and vice versa. So yeah, if you want to go you want to go attack the store that has the magic item that you want, expect there to be things that could potentially hinder your ability to do so. Um, and this just prevents the whole montage of murder hoboing, which is a word that I don't use very often, but has become a token word in modern D&D. The other thing that I personally hate seeing or would prefer not to see is the video game montage feel of D&D, which is I get my quest, I go kill the boss, I get my loot, I continue, I get my quest, I go kill the boss, and I get my loot. Let's say you run into this problem.
Right.
And this is more of they're driving the storyline directly. There's no veering off. There's no projection otherwise. And they're just, you know what? I know where he's pulling with this. I know there's a boss at the end of this. I want to kill it. I want to get my stuff and I want to go. What do you like to throw into your games to kind of give that more dimension rather than just the video game aspect of gaming?
So if if they're just gunning for the boss or something, and trying to get they do get into that rut. I call it a rut where they just get focused on
Hmm.
doing the mission, getting the loot, doing the mission, getting the loot. Um, I will throw in different like almost like a sub boss, just kind of like a precursor to
Hmm.
what they're getting into, something to kind of maybe chew up a little bit of resources or something, you know what I mean? So that way they come in there, and it's a little bit more challenging,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? They should be challenged. If it's a
Correct.
boss fight, it should be challenging. In my opinion, depending on what levels fighting what, but they should um, it should be challenging. And if it is not, you got to kind of come up with some creative ways to make it slightly more challenging uh, via using NPCs, using other bosses, sub bosses, different. You can even throw in, like I was saying before, some of those other avenues. You can use uh, NPCs or different elements of the scene that they're in or the environment that they're in to kind of guide them off of their path to something else to kind of eat up a little bit of resources or and some time and kind of extend the adventure in a certain other way before they come to the boss. um, there are things like that I kind of try to broaden the scene, so to say, before they go into a boss encounter.
Okay. Yeah, no, those are really good tips. So remember, if you guys are getting to the point, if anybody's out there and you're having problems with dealing with the idea that your players are overpowered or they're having issues, you're having issues making it feel more of a challenge or epic or however you want to describe it, use minions, use environment, use things that you can place in the area that can be utilized or do not need to be utilized depending on how the battle goes. Um, the next thing is what do you use? So I personally use OneNote from all my preparation. Most of my OneNote is set up in episodes, which is set up then cut down into scenes. And then I have a bunch of little cheat sheets that I can use to pull and gather information as need be on things such as locations, people, um, random names. Because we all know as a game master, the worst thing you want to do is come up to a guard who you have no idea who he is. They want to know his name for some weird reason, even though all they're doing is asking for directions. And you don't want to be that game master that's completely stuck on the spot going, uh, his name's Bob. If you got to do it, you got to do it, and you throw the name out immediately. But if you have that built list of names early in the built already for you, and you just drag and drop them at the end of the session or during the middle of the session while you're talking, it allows you then to keep that continuity going and that speed going without you losing step in the immersion by just stopping. Is that something you do, or how do you specifically like? What do you utilize as preparation materials?
So I use a lot of prepared names as well. But sometimes I like to run it as I have them stored as a table, and I have them all numbered. And if I'm looking for like an elf name, I'll pull up the elves, and then I'll just roll, and it's going to give me a random male elf name. I just have it set up that way. It just makes it easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but I rarely have to do like a random name pool, because I keep a lot of my NPCs named. But when it is a common nobody in the village, if they ask who their name was, yeah, that you do get the on the fly trying to pick a name. And I just like using the table, and I use a table for a lot of different things. When I have my preparation, I do have a cheat sheet of cities, NPCs. So the cheat sheet contains this whatever city we're in. It'll contain the well-known NPCs of the city, and it'll contain any like quest ideas or quests that I have completed for that area. It'll all be there,
Nice.
and I just kind of have that as a guide to go by, and then also I let a little bit of that randomness come in there from the players, and that helps mold things as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, those are so use your tables, build your tables, um, go out and take the time before your games and review your tables. Make sure that the table matches what you're planning on doing that night or what you might need for the night. You don't want to be set up in the middle of the game and be like, oh crap, I need a random generator table because I don't know what this could be. But that also goes back to knowing your players. If you know your one player loves every single book under the sun and wants to read it all the time, be prepared for that, but also make sure if your player is going to be that person that he is ready to make stuff up on the spot as well. I do like to sometimes throw that creativity and on the spot mentality back to my players and see what crazy zany thing they come
Absolutely.
up. So if you're walking down the road and you see this catwalk that passes you twice, deja vu and whatnot, and you look at the player and so what are you remembering or what do you think it means, and then let the player roll with it. One thing that I know I personally have to get better at, and I know it's more of an acting thing than it is and an improv mentality, is the yes and. A lot of times you see players and game masters that want to kind of conflict the story, like, oh, but the story was already written this way, or no, this is how I want my player to go. If you let that string just a little bit of leeway, you're going to watch the story flow a lot better, and you won't have to worry about all those confrontations. Um, yeah, so like I said, with me, I personally set up all my stuff in OneNote, and I have every campaign structured differently a little bit because of how the players are. And then my goal is to give something we talked about last week, which is a present to my players at least one of my players every game. But it could try to give at least one or two players every game. And that present could be information, that could be a secret, that could be a epic kill, and some of it you can let the dice do. But it allows them to feel like they're more immersed and more enveloped into the game. So here's a funny question because I know since you've been playing as long as you have and you've been there with me on this, I guarantee it. Do you still use 3 by 5 index cards for anything?
Yes. Oh man, I use them for so much. What are you talking
So, like I know now, building into a lot of the virtual tabletops that have already been built for you, you can build your own items and your own stuff like that. But some of us who played around a table for as long as we have, you definitely can see that difference in what we are, that type of change. Because I'm normally I built all my items, all my characters, anything that would give me that opportunity to utilize it a little bit is definitely something that I would expect to be that way. Um, so it's good to hear that you still use those things because that's funny to that goes back to my
about?
old
Oh yeah.
days. So let's
Man,
see.
it's the best quick tool, dude. It's always right there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like it feels right, dude. I don't know. Just something about a little index card, feels good.
Oh no, I completely agree. Completely 100% agree. Actually, we get lucky because since we work in the world of Xyothe, a lot of our cards are already given to us. So if you are around a table like we are here, sometimes there are cards that are built directly for all the items that they come up with, as well as these cool little cheap items, like rewards that you can give people, which we're starting to do in our stream now. So we're excited to add that little bit of a mystery in, which allows you to draw. If you give blessing to one of the characters, they can draw a GUI reward card, which allows them to do an extra attack, or gives one extra HP and all these little benefits, but they're not level benefits. They're
That's
something
cool.
extra. So yeah, we've started doing that. And it's been a lot of fun. Um,
Nice.
we
I love offering bonuses to the players. It's
yeah.
one of the cool things that we could do as a DM.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize, I got this from somebody, so I'm not going to say that I came out of my own head for this, but uh, Matt Colville and a couple other YouTube D&D enthusiasts came up with the idea of cinematic advantage. If you're going to project and you're going to say, hey, I want to jump off this cart, do a cartwheel, and throw a dagger at that dude's head, you're going to roll an acrobatics check. And if you succeed in that acrobatics check, then you're going to get an advantage on that attack. I think that gives a little more, it breaks away the whole idea of just always using flanking and things like that. Do you use the grid a lot, or do you use it more as a reference tool, but not like rigid?
So I will use the grid like in an encounter, like in a fight scene. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
think the grid is important there, especially when there's lots of different abilities and spells being flung around and stuff. I like using the grid.
Okay.
Besides, in an when they're in an encounter, when I display a map, I like it to be open. I will offer them, pretty much free movement. I want them to play the scene out, and that's kind of the way that I work things.
Okay. I don't want to put you on spot, and if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But I'd be curious to hear how you would present a scene to somebody. Specifically, they're sitting down at the table. It's the first thing in the night. You want to kind of get that started off right. What would be something you would a example of something you would present to a player or to the table?
You're talking about like if they're freshly coming in to a scene.
To a scene, yeah. So what does the scene feel like to or set up like for you?
Okay, so let's say we have four players,
Okay.
right? We have a dwarf, we have an elf, we have a human,
And a halfling, right?
and let's say, sure, sure. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we've got to throw the halfling in
Yeah,
there.
right.
Um,
It's the Lord of the
so
Rings party.
yeah, yeah. So the party of four, they are being invited by, let's say, the lord of this town that they are in, and so the scene I would paint that they arrive when they arrive at the lord's house would be that the players when they arrive, I would tell them that the the opening of the mansion or manor of the lord of the town is grand with its stone decorates, and the wind is pressing against your back. The sun is just beginning to set as the evening is is building. You can hear the sounds coming from inside the the what is it, the the Lord's manor, where you can hear the bards and people celebrating the evening. When you arrive to the doors open, and there are two guards there, and they invite you up and request to see your invitation. The first guard smells of fish and has wrinkly skin as though he has been at this post for a long time. The second guard, he is, rather young. He has broad shoulders and he is very talkative and uh, wants to know uh, the party as people, and he begins to engage in conversation with the players. At that point, I would let them possibly do some conversation there, and then we would walk into the manor. The manor would appear grand. The scent of freshly cut flowers would be blooming through as the wind from your back pushes through the door, and you get this waft of fresh food and everything being prepared. As you move closer, the music from the bards and uh, other musical talents uh, begin to get louder, and the floor itself is magnificent. It is shiny, and you can almost see your reflection clearly when you gaze down at the floor. And there's a grand staircase to the right of the room that leads up to presumably where the Lord himself would be. Um, and as you move into the Lord's um, manor, you come to a hall where everybody is gathering, and you could see a long table, probably 50 feet long, with several chairs and people feasting. At the center of the table, there are several roast pigs, probably accompanied by bowls of different types of fruit and all kinds of other local delicacies. There are servers that are moving about, bustling, trying to get people their food. Um, at the head of the table, you would see an empty throne-like chair, where the Lord would come to sit. As you take your seats at the table, you are greeted by a server, and the server would offer you anything that is at the table. At this time, they would be able to choose what they would want to feast on. As they are feasting, the bards would be coming around, playing around the table. A lot of them would recognize some of the songs, being from their homelands or whatnot. In the back of the room, you could see gestures and stuff, doing tricks and comedy acts and different sorts of things. Um, the room itself is really well lit with grand chandeliers of different types of animal horn, with large candles uh, blazing on the chandelier itself. Um, and as everybody is eating, there would become a silence as the Lord comes down to feast.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
So,
what.
oh, it's good. So this, I'm guessing, without putting you completely on the spot tonight, this would most likely.
Oh, that was on the spot, buddy.
What was that? What'd you say?
I said, oh, that was on the spot, buddy.
Yeah. So what I'm guessing is that this would be things that you would be trying to prepare early as the first step going into the game for the night.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So the one thing I've always tell people, and I've told them in a couple of my streams before, is I do works of three, which I've heard it a lot during your presentation there, which is like use sight, smell, sound. Okay, you don't have to dive into every sense. The more senses you give, yes, the better the image is going to be painted in your head. But sometimes there are people out there, including myself, that get sensory overload. If you tell me what things taste, smell, hear, like you give me all the senses every time, and I'm gonna start fading away every once in a while. So that's why I used the round of three.
Sure.
Uh, but no, and then he stepped through the process. This allows your players then to have moments where they can interact or choose to interact or not, but you're still moving the story along. So that was a really good presentation there for that. So if you guys are launching in August, or did you guys, or is that to be
So
continued?
yeah, the show Dungeon Stream is being pushed back till January start. We
Okay,
just don't want to release anything that's like incomplete. We still have some things that we're working on, and some things that we want to button up and make really good before we start releasing. So
nice.
we do have. other plans that will probably release before Dungeon Stream, as Dungeon Studios is very broad. We work on a lot of different things, so we do have plans to launch Enron Online at its scheduled date, um, and then we have several other projects that we're working that will probably launch before Dungeon Stream itself. But
Awesome.
Dungeon Stream is kind of our, it's our main show, it's our baby,
Yeah.
so we want to make sure that it comes out strong.
Yep.
So we're making sure that it does that.
Yeah, so we are definitely going to be watching closely as they continue their process towards heading their stream out, and we've worked with them on a few different things now. They were the awesome people who created our logo, and I've worked with multiple people, including Chris, who is our normal guest host lately, and they're just an awesome group of guys, the awesome group of people in general that are super involved with D&D, super involved with the tabletop community, and just want to see the whole community grow as a whole, which is awesome. So we're going to continue to bring these guys in, different parts from their teams, and pick their brains about how they're doing things, and it gives them some a little bit more uh, information, or not information, but exposure as they get ready for to launch their big thing here next year. So we've went over scenes, and we've went over things that you do to prepare. How do you does anybody in the audience have any questions? I know we don't. Our audience is a little tiny tonight, but it's also the weekend before, or the week before Fourth of July, so people are probably already out partying and having fun. Um,
Oh yeah.
but does anybody have any questions for myself or Josh here from Dungeon Stream about how to prepare better, how to be ready when your players throw you a curveball, anything? And then Josh, if you have any sort of tips or tricks you like to utilize, or you've heard or seen that have helped you kind of curve that unpreparedness, or curve that need to improv absolutely everything every week, because we all know players don't play by the rules ever. They want to break every single rule under the sun, and it's why we have Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs, because they actually give us rules. Otherwise, we just sit here and we just talk the entire time. To build by episode or freeform, or plan out the whole campaign? Okay, so that's a good question. So, do you prefer to build by episode or in freeform it, or do you plan out the whole campaign from the beginning?
So I have the main idea for the entire campaign mapped out. Like I said, I like the players to kind of lead stuff and mold a little bit of things there. So I do kind of plan it by episode, or I'll do a couple of episodes of planning, just so that way, I don't plan too much, and they blow, 4 episodes going and doing. I want to be prepared for that aspect as well, because I want them to have freedom. I want them to be able to feel like, there are 1,000 other things that they can do besides, doing the main mission. So, I want them to feel that like some of the other missions are main missions as well, so I
Wait for Josh to come back here for a second. So, curious, did that answer? Has that answer any of that answered your question? I know he was cutting in and out there for a minute. Hopefully, our guest comes back. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I'm gonna check on him, make sure that he didn't fall in the hole, or the Lord that was walking down the stairs didn't come over and just chop his head off, that kind of thing. But the just seeing if he's got a preference. Yeah. So, and then personally, mine, I kind of do the same thing. I have an idea of where I want the game to go, or where I want the story to go, and I try to give enough of that for the players at the beginning of the game to have a idea of how they'd like to build their character, or give them a little bit of a directional path so that they're not just going off on the deep end in five different directions. But normally I plan 1 to 2 episodes ahead at max, and that's because I think if you plan too much, you break your creativity a little bit. And as a game master, creativity is so important to just allow the game to play out, allow the story to play out in a way that is the only word I have for it is magical. It doesn't make sense half the time until the story fully plays out and you go, "Oh wow, this was an amazing story." But sometimes you have to allow that to just go. Other times you pull it in, and when you want those big hit points, those big moments, you want to make sure that you drill those in. But other times you just let the players, you let your mind wander for a moment, and you see where the group wants to take the next plunge. It's really nice doing it in an episodic format because you kind of have a way to stir it or to steer it for a little bit, and then you allow it to hit a point where things can be chosen otherwise. Um, let's see here. So we've make sure, like I said, I feel bad. I think Josh either um, the the creatures of the abyss kind of ripped a hole through the time space continuum, came out from behind him in the Dungeon Studios look, and then just gone. But we'll check on him after the stream if he doesn't come back. The gremlins got him. That's even a worse idea. Like, he was, maybe he accidentally spilled water during the stream and they were underneath it, and then it's all over for him. I feel really bad for him. Great movie, by the way. It gives a lot of that little creepy horror that you're looking for in a lot of games, or in a lot of stories, especially if you're a child. Man, Gremlins was creepy. Yeah. So I hope this helps people. I hope this helps the people in here, and that when we drop this up on YouTube, that it's helping people to better prepare their games, to make it more immersive. Definitely use your senses and everything that you describe. The other cool thing that you can do, and it's a little easier if it's prepared, is describe things that are interactive. Interactive things allow your players to get that feel that they're in the game, or they're in the story. Where if you describe the painting on the wall, or you describe the chandelier, or you describe the table, these are all things that players as their character can interact with in different ways. And I just heard that it was the abyss, and completely ripped his power out of the wall, and he's currently fighting off some sort of nasty electrical monster that's taken the shape of the dragon behind his video. So we're gonna wish him the best of luck, and hopefully he gets a +2 sword when he gets that chance to swing hard and gets that natural 20. Otherwise, he's gonna botch it, and we won't see him back for a while because we're gonna need to have a cleric go over there and do a resurrection spell, because that's just it's a horrible thing, but it does make a great story. So um, yeah, I don't have. Let me think if there's anything else. It's really. I'm not saying that it's an awkward feeling, but it is a little bit when there's nobody else to talk to. Um, he's trying to slay the dragon right now, so we're gonna see if he pops in here shortly. But while I'm here, like I said, if you have questions, if you've asked anything else or you're curious of anything, it could be player related, it could be game master related, it could be anything really. And I'm either going to make a joke out of it that's going to be based on D&D, or I'm going to tell you a way to, hopefully, a way to help you out, because this is something that is very passionate to me, and it's something that I'm super excited to continue on as we grow. I might even start looking at how to implement some of the newer books, because they're just every book's one thing that I've noticed. And if you've never read any of the modules, you have to realize that the modules aren't just built as an adventure; they give a new style of gameplay. And the hex crawl of and the randomness throughout the jungles of Cholt and Tomb of Annihilation, the gothic horror and how to implement horror in a game with the new Van Richtens, the idea of secrets and the elements and things like that come from the Icewind Dale or the my yeah, Icewind Dale, yeah, I think that's what it is. Uh, and each of these don't just give you ideas for or give you an adventure; they give you ideas to help you as game masters. And it took me a very long time to realize that it wasn't just a problem like that. No, it's Rime of the Frost Maiden. Oh my goodness, it's taken me 2 minutes to try to remember that. But yeah, they're great materials. They're great ways to add monsters, to manipulate the game in ways that you wouldn't have expected. And then they're also really fun to just go out with some friends and play, and they're already set up for you for the most part. A lot of them have a lot of parts where you have to improvise and play off the cuff and let your players do what players are gonna do. But yeah, it's definitely a way to help game masters in a way that I didn't realize at first. So the books are built there to help game masters not just run an adventure, but to actually bring those elements to any adventure. So, yeah, we're gonna check on I'm gonna check on Josh real quick and make sure that he's on the up and up on against the slaying of the dragon before we close out here. If he is, and I'm gonna let him come in and say his final words after being after he's done killing the dragon. Try to give him a couple more minutes. Hopefully, this dragon doesn't have some nasty electrical cone breath that's going to just rip him to shreds, and we won't see him ever again. Maybe we'll have to, like I said, we're gonna have to send a cleric. We have a cleric though. Our wonderful Karis from our stream, he's a cleric. We'll send him over, and he can bless with the blessing of Canundrus, the mad one. So I'm gonna do a quick ending here. And maybe we'll see him pop in here, but it's always a pleasure to have people in here to talk about D&D, to give you guys tips and tricks on ways to make your games better, ways to help out. If you have questions or you have things that you really are curious about, please make sure that you shoot those in the chat room so that we can talk about those together, as well as we have a website, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Patreon, we have all sorts of other avenues where you can really get involved with the community, help grow this community, work together side by side with us as we continue to just expand the world of tabletop gaming and the fun excitement of storytelling within tabletop gaming. So with that being said, I think we're going to close down for the night. So as usual, I'm going to end this with a wonderful Orsteiner Dunkel Ale, which is delicious. And I hope your adventures are a blast this week, and that you grab a glass, you drink hearty, and that you go slay that darn dragon that's attacking Josh, because we're going to need him back next week. So until then, have a wonderful time, and I will see you next week.